Welcome to this month's Exploring Quality in Family Childcare. We are talking about child-directed play today. My name is Grace Eilers, and I will be the facilitator for today's event. And we are going to begin, as we typically do for our Exploring Quality series, by placing and acknowledging where this concept, where this topic shows up in a couple different standards of high-quality early childhood education. And the first is Satellite's accreditation standards. So it shows up frequently throughout. I'm going to pull out two standards where this is really highlighted. Under Section 3, it states that children learn through self-paced play and through active engagement with materials, the educator, and other children. And that children have opportunities throughout the day to move about, make choices about their activities, and follow their own interests at their own pace. The second that I wanted to pull out is also in Section 3, and it states that most activities are child-initiated. So activities planned by the educator are planned according to the interests and abilities of children. So we heard self-paced play, child-initiated. We are really talking about that child-led aspect of play today. So what does this mean? What does this look like? And I know all of you have great examples that I'm excited to hear from you that you'll have the opportunity to share later. How often should children be engaged in self-guided experiences in early learning program? We're going to cover this today. It also shows up in the Young Star criteria under developmentally appropriate environments, stating that the daily schedule must include that minimum of 50 uninterrupted consecutive minutes of free choice. And again, we're going to talk about what's free choice, child-led learning. There are a lot of different keywords that show up in each of these three standards. But before we get into all of that, we're going to take a moment to think about what comes to mind when we really narrow our focus and think about the word play. So take a moment and reflect on what comes to mind for you when you hear the word play. And if you are willing and able, we would love to hear from you through the chat. Fun, free, exploring, creativity. Daisy says, have fun, interacting with other children and enjoying every minute, fun and free. Lisa says imagination. I heard a lot of free, fun, imagination, exploration, and learning. And those are words that and themes that are going to come up later on when we get into those components of what are those components of meaningful play for young children. And research in our field of early childhood education has long looked into this balance of adult-led and child-led learning experiences. And in a study done in 2022, researchers found that children who were in early ed programs that spent over 60% of learning time in child-led experiences, child-led play, those children had greater school readiness by the time they entered kindergarten. So, and I know that is most likely one of the many goals that you have for the children in your program. You want to set them up for success when they enter school. So this study was looking at who or which children were better able to meet the social and emotional developmental milestones that is expected by the time a child enters kindergarten. It looked at math and it looked at literacy skills. And it was showing that children who spent more time in child-led play were better ready to enter school and to succeed. So what makes something adult-led versus child-led? It ultimately boils down to essentially one question, who decides? So if you think about your day, there is already so much time in a child's life where they don't have the freedom to make a choice, and that's just inevitable. You know, now we have snack. Now we rest. Now we wash our hands. And if you begin to add up all this time spent on basic needs, just caring for basic needs, and we think about the amount of learning time that is left for a child, most of your day should theoretically be spent in child-led learning. So now we're going to talk about what those components that I mentioned earlier, what are the components that we see in child-led play? And this information has been adapted from the National Association's Education for Young Children's 5 Essentials to Meaningful Play. So the first essential component is that children must make their own decisions. So this really is getting to the heart of child-led or self-paced, child-directed piece that is mentioned in so many different standards of high quality care. And I look at these two images here and I think about all of the unique decisions that were made to create these two play situations that we see. And as you know, I'm sure as to unknowing adults, these decisions can seem really sporadic or like random even. So looking at the image from Kiki's program, Explorers of Truth Childcare, it appears that the children here, they're just laying out all the materials. And like that is what they need for their play in that moment. And then the image from Sarah's Littles on the right shows children working together to construct something. And they're using pieces from the environment that might not have even been intentionally placed there to be something to be used in play, such as those the colorful bins that are the holders for materials. So the second component is that children are intrinsically motivated. So this means that the motivation to learn, to play, to create, all of that is coming from within the child and not from an external source. So this can be something like pleasing others or getting a reward. And as all of you know, young humans naturally want to learn and grow. So you are going to find so many opportunities when children are engaged in that intrinsic motivation to do and to learn to extend on those important school readiness skills just by observing and acknowledging what children are doing. So for example, the two preschoolers here in the right image, they sorted all of the picnic food by color. And the children on the left, they are creating different shapes with the construction paper, the cubes, the cardboard. They're working together. So we're going to move on to our third one, the third component of 5. Think of think for a moment about a time where you were so focused on something that time seemed to just go by so much faster than what you had realized. Now, when this happens, you are becoming immersed in the moment. So that is our third component. Children become immersed in the moment. And this is essentially a state of hyper focus and deep attention. So I would assume that that moment you were thinking of as an adult, those moments are experienced when you are doing something that you have chosen to do or that is enjoyable for you. So when children are engaged in meaningful play, they may begin to experience the state of flow. And it is here where children then deepen their attention skills and their learning. So for the children in the images here, becoming immersed in the moment means entering that deep state of play. All right, number 4, play is spontaneous. It must be spontaneous, which means that there is no set way to play or specific steps that children must follow to engage in play. And again, similar to children making their own decisions, this also means that it may look rather sporadic or random. It might change very rapidly. Children may use materials in a way that you have never thought of, such as putting puzzle pieces in a big bowl of material and toy stew, as you can see in Honey Pine Nature Play School here on the right. And they are working, when children do this, they're working their flexible thinking skills when they're being spontaneous. And finally, so many of you mentioned this when I asked what comes to mind when you think of the word play. It must be enjoyable, it must be fun. The final component here speaks to that emotional connection that really happens between our emotion center in the brain and our memory center when children are engaged in play. So the human brain processes strong emotional experiences into long-term memory much faster than experiences that are not tied with that strong emotion. So this can be things like excitement, thrill, joy, pride, frustration, even. All of these emotions that children may experience during child-directed play, they're processed in what's called the limbic system in your brain. And then it tells the memory system, hey, this is important. You need to remember this. And this is the basis of all learning. And you can feel that, I'm sure, as you look at the images here on the slide. And now we are going to watch a video with clips from Sarah's Little's Adventures in Play School to witness some of the components that we just discussed.
Well, can I actually make, would you like more desserts? Here, Mom, can I tell you something? So can I go make dessert for tomorrow?
So now we're going to dig in and talk more specifically about why what we just talked about is so essential in early childhood and why more and more organizations are pushing for more play and less adult-led learning in early childhood and childhood in general. So starting off, we're wrapping back around to what we had first talked about when we were going through the components of meaningful play, and that is the decision-making cycle that occurs when children are given that space and time to explore their environment. So think for a moment about all of the decisions that you made just this morning. You decided what to wear today. You decided what to eat for breakfast. You maybe decided what to put in your coffee. You make so many decisions all day, every day. And as we covered, children, they don't have all those same opportunities because, again, they still need a lot of guidance from adults. So that is why play is the opportunity for children to practice making decisions for themselves. And they're going to do that by going through this cycle of identifying a choice or a problem to be made or solved. And then they're going to analyze all of the possible solutions, the options that they have, the possibilities. And then ultimately, they're going to make a choice or they're going to solve that problem. And then the decision making cycle might start all over again. And I think about all of the cooperative decisions that went into developing this dramatic play scene that we see in the image here from Miss Julia Scalia. So we are now going to spend about 9 minutes hearing from Dr. Peter Gray, a researcher, an author, and a play advocate about why free play in childhood is so important to our society as a whole. So again, we're going to watch 9 minutes from this clip. You're going to receive the rest in a follow-up email after this event. So you can watch the video in its entirety if you're interested. And we are starting about 4 minutes in, and Dr. Gray is just wrapping up speaking about how about the fact that all mammals play, and when you take that play away in from young mammals, they become socially maladjusted, extremely fearful of new environments, and they have a lot of social and emotional challenges that persist into adulthood when you take the access to play away from non-human mammals.
Here's really what I'm here to talk about. Over the last 50 to 60 years, we've been gradually taking that gift away. Over this period of time, there's been a continuous erosion in children's freedom and opportunity to play, to really play, to play freely. This has been documented in various ways by historians and social scientists, and I'm old enough that I've seen it in the course of my lifetime. In the 1950s, when I was a child, we had ample opportunity to play. We had school, but school was not the big deal that it is today. Some people might not remember, but the school year then was 5 weeks shorter than it is today. The school day was 6 hours long, but at least in elementary school, 2 of those hours were outdoors playing. We had half-hour recess in the morning, half-hour recess in the afternoon, a full hour at lunch. We could go wherever we wanted during that period. We were never in the classroom more than an hour at a time or for 4 hours a day. It just wasn't the big deal. And homework for elementary school children was essentially unheard of. There was some homework for high school students, but much, much less than today. Out of school, we had chores, some of us had part-time jobs, but for the most part, we were free to play for hours a day after school, all day on weekends, all summer long. I like to say that when I was a kid, I had school and I also had a hunter-gatherer education. At that time, you could walk through any neighborhood in America, almost any time the school wasn't in session, and you would find kids outdoors playing without any adults around. Now, if you walk through most neighborhoods in the United States, what you find, if you find kids outdoors at all, is they're wearing uniforms, they're on some kind of manicured field, they're following the directions of adult coaches while their parents are sitting on the sidelines cheering their every move. We call this play sometimes, but it isn't by any play researcher's definition. It's not really play. Play, by definition, is self-controlled and self-directed. It's the self-directed aspect of nature, of play, that gives it its educative power. Here are some of the reasons why play has declined. One, of course, is the increased weight of school. But an even more important reason, as important as that one is, I think an even more important reason for the decline of play has been the spread outside of the school walls of what I call a schoolish view of child development. The view that children learn best everything from adults, that children's own self-directed activities with other children are wastes of time. We don't often say it that way, but that's the implicit understanding that underlies so much of our policy with regard to children. So childhood has turned from a time of freedom to a time of resume building. Another reason, of course, has to do with the spread of fears, really mostly irrational fears, spread by the media, spread by experts who are constantly warning us of the dangers out there if we don't watch our children every minute that they're out there. Many people recognize the absurdity of some of these extreme fears, but yet once we get them in their head, it's hard to shake them. I know many parents who would love to let their kids play outdoors, and they think it would be great to, but they just can't get rid of that idea. In addition, there's a kind of self-generative quality to the decline of play. Once there are fewer kids out there playing, the outdoors becomes less attractive. It also becomes less safe. So that kid who does go outdoors finds nobody to play with and goes back inside. Now, I don't want to romanticize the 1950s. There's a lot of ways in which we're a much better world today than we were then. But we are a much worse world for kids. Over the same decades that play has been declining, we have seen a well-documented increase in all sorts of mental disorders in childhood. The best evidence for this comes from the use of standardized clinical assessment questionnaires. Based on such assessments, 5 to 8 times as many children today suffer from major depression or from a clinically significant anxiety disorder as was true in the 1950s. And this has been a continuous, gradual, roughly linear increase over the years. Very well documented. Over this same period, we've seen among young people from age 15 to 24 a doubling of the suicide rate. We've seen among children age 15 and under a quadrupling of the suicide rate. Over this same period of time, the suicide rate for people my age has gone down considerably. We've become a worse world for children, not necessarily a worse world for adults, and maybe a better world for us older adults. We've also seen a decline in the sense that young people's sense that they have control over their own lives. There's a questionnaire called the internal-external locus of control scale. There's a version of this for children as well as for adults. It's been given since about 1960. Ever since it's been given, we've seen a decline, a continuous decline in children and young adults' sense that they have control over their own lives. They have more and more of a sense that their lives are controlled by fate, by circumstance, by other people's decisions. Now, this is significant in terms of the relationship between anxiety and depression, because one thing clinical psychologists know very well is that not having an internal sense of control sets you up for anxiety and depression. More bad news. We've also seen in fairly recent years, due to questionnaires that have been given out since about 1980, a rise in narcissism in young people and a decline in empathy. And most recently, there's been research studies analyzing results of tests of creativity over the years, which show that there's been a gradual decline in creative thinking among children, school children of all grades, since about the mid-1980s. Now, of course, as any social scientist will tell you, correlation doesn't prove cause and effect. But in this case, I think that there is good reason to believe that the decline in play is the cause of these deleterious changes. For one thing, the correlation is very good, especially the correlation between the decline in play, which seems to be roughly linear, beginning around 1955 on through today, correlates very well with the roughly linear increase in anxiety and depression among young people. It doesn't correlate with things like economic cycles or wars. Children are more depressed today than they were during the Great Depression. They're more anxious today than they were during the Cold War, when they were continuously being warned of the threat of nuclear holocaust that could happen any time. In addition, everything we know about play tells us that these are the effects we would expect if children are deprived of play. They're analogous to the effects we see in animals when we take play away from animals. Play is where children learn that they're in control of their own life. It's really the only place they are in control of their own life. When we take that away, we don't give them the chance to learn how to control their own life. Play is where they learn to solve their own problems and learn, therefore, that the world is not so scary after all. Play is where they experience joy and they learn the world is not so depressing after all. Play is where they learn to get along with peers and see from others' points of view and practice empathy and get over narcissism. Play is by definition creative and innovative. Of course, if you take away play, all these things are going to go down. And yet, the hue and cry that we hear everywhere is for more school, not for more play. And we've got We've really got to change that.
That video moves me every time that I watch it. And if you have any reactions that you would like to share in the chat, we would love to hear from you. And as you're thinking and typing those out, if you are, I would hope that watching this gives you that broader context to why we're here and why we're talking about this today, and affirms how big of an opportunity that you have as a family child care and early learning educator to offer children really meaningful experiences in early learning programs where they can engage in play. And as Dr. Gray talked about at length, all of the benefits that you see later on. Lisa says he is right on. Mary says this is such a great video, makes a lot of sense. So Dr. Gray did mention creativity throughout his talk. And that's another reason why child-directed play is so important. And it's very, very closely related to flexible thinking skills. But at its core, creativity is that form of outward expression where you as an individual, as an adult, as a child, you're taking what you already know and combining it with your imagination to construct something new. That creativity is the foundation of all human innovation. And it's also very deeply connected with life satisfaction in adulthood. So here are just a few examples of children using their creativity during play. I see some more comments in the chat as well popping up. So if you have access to reading those, feel free to do so, and you can even respond to others' messages. This is another topic that I love to talk about personally, and that's boredom tolerance. And Dr. Dre did not get to this in his video, so I really wanted to highlight this concept of how when children get the opportunity to play and engage in child-directed play, they're sometimes going to get the opportunity to experience and work through that very normal and very uncomfortable feeling of I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself right now. And when children experience this in environments with very supportive adults that don't immediately give them something to do or something else to entertain them, like immediately fixing that boredom problem for them, they are better able to work through those feelings again in the future. And I have a quote here from Jasmine Waldner, a now retired family educator, who told me this is her response when she hears this infamous quote, "I'm bored" statement from children during free play. And she told me she gets very excited, very animated, and says, "You're bored? How exciting. What should we do?" So she does a couple things. She puts the decision-making task back on the child, and she also treats it as an opportunity, as an exciting opportunity to make a choice. She reframes that thinking process for the child. And as all of you know, because especially now in 2026, there are a lot of different organizations talking about play and the benefits of play. There are so many other fantastic benefits that we're not going to get into today. And I know that you're already familiar with and you talk a lot about with families. So here is a resource for you to continue to help you with those conversations. I will send it to you in a follow-up email. It is from Town Square, the Erickson Institute's Town Square. And it offers a description of all of the skills that children are building when they engage in different types of play. So here's an example of sensory materials. So when I am playing with sensory materials, I am learning about the properties of materials, the inquiry process, sorting, classifying, developing skills with fine motor control, using my senses and sharing. And the resource gives a few other examples as well. When I'm building with blocks, when I am creating with art materials, when I'm looking at books, all of those things are in this resource that you will receive in a follow-up email. I will pause here, and I just want to check in with the chat to see if anyone has anything that, if there are any updates, I guess, that I can read aloud for the group who might not have access to the chat at this moment. Very enlightening. I try to let kids make as many, try to let kids make as many decisions possible as I can throughout the day within reason. Barbara says, I also think that the internet has helped in lowering play, interaction, and imagination building. Amy says, let's help children learn through play. I'm bored is my 4-year-old favorite thing to say. I'll definitely be using that. I love that that spoke to you. All right, let's wrap up our time together by talking about how you can further support children's child-directed play as an educator in your program. And we are going to hear from you, from those in the room, and then we're also going to hear from Janelle Moran, who is a family child care educator, answer a few of the questions that I brought to her. So take a moment and reflect on how you currently plan play opportunities in your program. And if you're willing and able, again, we'd love to hear from you through the chat. We're also going to hear from Janelle in a moment. Answer the same question. Mary says, I asked the children what they want to learn about or play with. So I'm hearing asking children, what are you interested in? What do you like to have out? What should we put out in the environment? And then others are speaking about the resources that they use, like looks like Barbara uses GWIZ curriculum. All right, we are going to hear now from Janelle, and Janelle is going to answer the same question. It might have some similarities between what Janelle's doing and what some of you in the group are doing as well.
So Danita Dinger has influenced my planning quite a bit. I've attended quite a few of her trainings, and she's very much play-based as well, child-led, child-directed. So I do have kind of like a template that I use, and I use that so every Monday at the end of the day after our day of play and learning and everything. I use that template to kind of create plops throughout the environment. So I'll place something to support language and literacy. Think of us, if they were singing a song, which they're always singing songs, that'll be like the song of the week. And we do like a book of the week as well. We read the same book every day for a week to help extend that language and literacy. And then we have an activity to support the math, an activity to support science, an activity to support creativity and imagination, whether it's art or dramatic play, and then an activity to support pre-literacy, like handwriting. So mostly like art. My kids are still young, so we're not doing much writing. It's basically just paper, stickers, crayons, markers. So yeah, so it's based off of what I see that Monday happening. And then making sure I have those things in my environment and making sure I have things accessible that maybe they might build off of. So we have a lot of things. I have a whole art supply closet that I can just pull things out of, art rack in the program that we use quite often, materials there that are easy for me to pull off, so that just making sure I have things ready and accessible should they request it. I also make sure that like equipment can be easily moved, so that because we have well-defined areas, just to cut down on running in the program, because we do have kind of a smaller space downstairs. And because we are a mixed age group too. So I try to make the areas well defined. But then at the same time, make it so that if one day, and this actually happened for the first time in a while, they were doing large group play just naturally. They all wanted to play with magnetiles. So I make my space available that we can move like the bookshelves, remove the tables to open up the space a little bit more. We have our living room upstairs as well, so that if I'm seeing that they're really involved in large group play on days that we can't really get outside as much, then we just move it upstairs. But we're outside most of the time during the spring, summer, and fall.
So Janelle talks a lot about how she plans her environment with play and development in mind, and how she places what she calls plops throughout the environment based on what she's seen and through the children's behavior and through their communication. So your environment is obviously a huge component of what supports children's play. And I have just a few considerations for you to reflect on. And if you're interested in diving more into the environment, and I'd encourage you to attend our next Exploring Quality on creating inviting play areas in July. We'll dig into this concept more. So what is a choice must be accessible is our first consideration. And this means that it means what it says, that children need to be able to freely access, to take out, to use, to sometimes put away materials and equipment in your learning environment. And we know that I know that in a mixed age environment, there may have to be some exceptions to this for safety reasons. Like you may have to put materials with very tiny pieces just out of reach because the majority of your children are under 3 years old. I love how in Sarah's program here on the left, you can see that she focuses so much on those non-chokeable loose part items so that children can just freely access all that the environment has to offer and then become really immersed in the moment. Tara also has a really great strategy in her program here on the right. You can see she sections off a portion of her learning environment that is solely for preschoolers and sectioned off by quarter walls, and then there is a gate for the older children to access and close to keep the youngers safe from those chokeable items. And again, we're going to talk about this more next month when we talk about creating inviting play areas, but it's important to keep in mind that what could be used together goes together. And this is pretty intuitive for all of us early educators out there. And it doesn't mean that children aren't going to be thinking outside of the box and, use a calculator as a ramp, as you can see in Kathy's program here on the right. But it does help spark that imagination and that initial plan, just like this beautiful food truck dramatic play area here on the left. And that's where a lot of your creativity can come through and shine when you're setting up your play environment. I asked Janelle to tell us what the particular group of children in her program, what those children are interested in right now. And this was her response.
They are interested in flashlights and shadow play. That's been kind of ongoing since late November. I attended a workshop at the NACCE conference that talked a lot about light and shadow play. And so I came back and got right to work pulling out flashlights and adding materials into my Amazon shopping cart that I found inspiring at the training, and got those, and they've been playing with them every day, and lots of fort play. So today I set out a Thomas the Train tent that was one of my kids. Just set it out, and they were playing with it so much. Reading books in there and pretending they were taking naps, pretending they were going to sleep. So yeah, we have a climber downstairs right now for the winter time, and they'll pull out blankets and make forts and have so much extended play with that. For a while there, they were playing like Santa was coming, or that they were going to sleep and waking up for school the next day. So all sorts of play with the fort play that they've been into. So the group that I had before this group, they were not into art at all. I
Mm.
mean, I would set out so many different art activities that I thought that they'd be interested in after watching their play. And, like one or two would come to the table, but this group that I have right now, I mean, they just cannot get enough of the art area. Glue, scissors, color pencils, markers, bingo dabbers, paint, clay. I mean, you name it. I set it
Hmm.
out, they'll be there. Like right now we have a large, I don't usually do coloring pages, but I thought this was kind of cool. It was like a large, huge, like almost like a floor mat, coloring page. And it's been out now for 2 weeks. And they'll take like little Hot Wheels over there too, and the little people, and they'll extend their play on there as well. But yeah, and then fort play has always been like every group I have, they love building forts. It depends on like the ages and the group, but yeah, I mean it kind of the areas of interest kind of change. Dramatic play is one that always seems to be a favorite with the kids too. So
You could hear how Janelle intentionally places materials and items within the environment to then further support children's interest in play in this answer as well. Here is another consideration about your environment, specifically your materials. In our Exploring Quality event in August, we're going to have another opportunity for you to come back, and we're going to focus on materials and how open-ended materials support children's play and deeper learning. So this is what I'm going to leave you with today. The more ways to use something, the more ways to play. There is so much more creativity and thought process required to use something that's open-ended, like one of those colorful loose part figurines on the right here in Kathy's program, or a few of the wooden circles on the left in Shannon's. And then it does to use something like, say, a character figurine, like Bluey or Mickey Mouse or something, that already has a storyline and name attached to it. So that's why the statement here, open-ended, means limitless play. There are so many opportunities, so many more uh, decision-making opportunities for children, so much more opportunities for creativity to shine and bloom, as well as their flexible thinking skills. This is the final question that I will ask you as the group, and then we're going to hear from Janelle. Take a moment to reflect on how you are present during children's free play. And again, if you are willing and able, we'd love to hear from you through the chat before we hear from Janelle. Mary asks, I ask if they need anything else I can get for them. And Kashna says, getting on the floor, playing with them, helping when we're doing puzzles. I sometimes will ask if I can play with them. Yeah, so Barbara's teaching those social skills by doing that. Mary also says I ask if I can join playing with them. A lot of modeling taking place. I also ask questions about what they're playing with. So many of you have already brought forth points that we're going to touch on in just a little bit. But first, we're going to hear from Janelle. Answer the same question.
best way I describe this to families is I'm there, but I'm not there. um, I am present, obviously, physically and sight and sound. But I'd like to take a step back so that I can really do my job, which is to make sure that the children are safe, but also watch them, observe them, take mental notes, physical notes, because we're a play-based program. Our programming is based off of their development and off of their interests. So my job in my program is just to kind of stand back, kind of take it all in, watch them, listen to them, step in as necessary. Um, I, if conflicts arise between the children, I kind of still try to bite my tongue and stand back and see if they can handle it themselves. Obviously, younger kids might need a little bit more help or suggestions. Um, might need some modeling from me, but I just kind of wait and see where they take it, and then intervene as necessary. Um, I use the environment as a third teacher. So uh, a lot of, planning the environment, looking at it, looking at where they're mainly interested in playing each day, what items they're interested in, and then arranging the environment to reflect that. So um, technically I have two teachers in the program. So yeah, we use a lot of the environment and just kind of me stepping back and, jumping in, making comments as necessary, but also just letting them take the lead, and trying again to keep my mouth shut and um, just watch their play unfold. It's been wonderful since I've switched to that. I used to be very much teacher led. Um, we're going to do art at this time, circle time at this time, and uh, just the beauty of it, of child-led play is just it's so magical to watch their play unfold, and it makes my job less stressful, um, making it, not having it teacher oriented, teacher led. I was just telling parents last week, we were off for almost 2 weeks during winter break, and that Monday coming or Tuesday coming back, day after New Year's Day, I was so nervous. I'm like, oh gosh, they're going to be out of routine and they're going to be crabby and tired. And but they weren't. I mean, they came in happy as can be. We had a few that were a little tired, but after 5 or 10 minutes and more kids arriving, they just jumped right back into their play like not even a day had passed. And we had new materials out too, so that made it a little more interesting for them. But yeah, I mean, I have mostly twos and threes, and you wouldn't be able to tell because they play so well together. And I think a lot of that is because, again, just me stepping back, letting them take the lead, setting up the environment to reflect their interests and their needs and their development, and just being there when they need me. So,
Now, I have visited Janelle's program, and I remembered when I did that she was one of the first educators that really inspired me to think more deeply about how you're present during children's play because she was so hands off. And I had not seen many educators taking this approach. And I can attest to what Janelle was speaking about, what is to the fact that when I was there observing, children were deeply engaged in play, and there wasn't a lot of need for adult direction or intervention of any kind. And these are with really little kids, like those toddlers, twos and threes. So we're going to wrap up by talking about how important, again, how important you are and how you are present during child-directed play. And this is really where that magic happens. And how you're present really depends on a lot of things. One of those is your educational philosophy. So some of you might take more of a hands-off approach, more of that observing rather than stepping in and really engaging in play with children in the moment. Um, and another could be that the children, just based on the children's needs of the ones that you have in your program at any given time. And I say this because some children may need more support than others, as all of you know. Sometimes the child might need you to just pause and connect with them before they're able to engage back in play. And sometimes they're never able to engage back in play, that they just need that connection from an adult, and that's okay. There are going to be hard days like that, or hard weeks like that, or hard months. Sometimes it could be that children need more adult or peer scaffolding taking place to really build those play skills. I know one of you already had mentioned asking those open-ended questions. So again, this could be the scaffolding piece. The need for scaffolding could be based on a variety of factors. This could be like personality trait of the child, their temperament, the available peers that they have, just their overall developmental skill level. So keeping free play child directed in those moments, those are going to be that these skills are going to be those powerful skills that you keep in your toolbox, your educator toolbox, that you can pull out and you can ask open-ended questions like, well, where will you play? Or you may offer choices like, would you like to play with the blocks or spend some time in the art area? And then waiting for a child's response. And then continue recruiting those older children, as I know all of you do, similar to the photo here from Kiki's program of older children taking the youngers under their wing. You will also receive this resource in a follow-up email, and this is a guide to a reflection guide to help you think about how much of your day is actually child-directed. So again, research is showing us that children thrive in environments that spend over 60% of learning time in child-led play. And this guide is to help you just take a snapshot of your day and track it, and then break it down by percentage of your day that's spent in adult-directed activities, child-led play, as well as attending to their basic needs. And this is just a tool to get you reflecting on the practice that you currently are doing in your programs. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for coming today and for your participation. And I hope that this event got you thinking about why, again, we hear all the time how play is so important for child development and for children's learning. And I hope this gave you some thinking points to think about later on, these reflection touch points of, well, this is why it is important, and this is how I can further extend what I'm already doing in my program. So thank you all very much.